For the past 9 months, Cheryl Donalfo and I offered contrasting visions for county government. We compared records, we offered ideas, and we talked about our priorities. On Tuesday, November 5th, the voters of Monroe County spoke, and they voted for change. They voted for a new direction, a county government that serves everyone. In a democracy, that's the way it works. Now, exactly 1 week later, the Republican majority of the county legislature proposed legislation that attempts to overturn the results of that election and silence the voice of the people. Their legislation proposes to fundamentally change county government. They did this with no warning, no discussion, and it's something that I know they would not have done if the election turned out differently. Their extreme action perfectly illustrates what's been wrong with this Republican county government and why voters stood up last week and said, enough. It shows why our community has stood still while politics has ruled. This proposal shows that their service in county government isn't about public service. It's about protecting their friends, maintaining power, and serving their own interests. Their proposal is attempting to change the rules to take away my ability to implement the change voters want and voters demanded. And I think people will find this offensive. I want people to know that I will fight this blatant, self-serving power grab. The old way of running government based on personal interests instead of the good of the community is no longer acceptable. My priority is making government work for everyone, regardless of who you are and who you know. So thank you, and I'll take any questions that you have.
When did you find out about this?
I found out about this just after 5 o'clock last night, when I think the legislators found out about it as well.
Which of the changes are most troubling to you, and which do you think you'll have the hardest time working around?
Well, I think the change that's most troubling to me is that they're attempting to change the county charter after the fact, to remove powers away from the county executive, to build a team, to implement the policies and proposals that the voters asked for last week. The voters asked for us to start to roll up our sleeves, put politics aside, and start to impact the challenges that are facing this community. And what the legislature is attempting to do by changing the charter is take away my ability to build that team to implement what the voters wanted. And I think that that's offensive.
Adam, in an interview with me just the other day, you talked about how the makeup of the county legislature wasn't a concern to you, and that some of your supporters had said to me that that one of your strengths was reaching out and working in a bipartisan manner. How does this move hinder that going forward?
Well, my expectation is that we find a way to work together. That's my approach in government, and I think that's why we should all be part of this. I think by putting a proposal together like this at the last minute, introducing it as a matter of urgency, and the way they're going about it is not acting in good faith. This is not what county government, the way county government is supposed to be run. This is not, I think, how voters expected this to happen and to play out, and I'm disappointed by the way this happened.
Were you surprised?
You know what, honestly I was, because just last week the president of the legislature and I exchanged text messages, said we look forward to working together. I've been saying in all of my media interviews, and I said it on election night, we have to start working together to solve the challenges and impact the challenges facing this community. And I had an expectation that when the voters speak and the voters send that message that they want something to get done, that we would all pay attention to that message. And I think that this violates what the voters wanted to have happen. This isn't about Adam Bello. This isn't about me. This is about the voters in this community who chose a new direction for Monroe County, and the voters who asked us to work together to find a way to come up with solutions to impact the challenges facing us.
You said that you're going to fight this. What steps are you considering?
Well, right now we're reviewing our options. I have a legal team around me that is reviewing the proposal to see what our options are.
Is there a chance the county executive wouldn't sign it?
Well, I think, well, I would hope she wouldn't sign it. I think that we should all be playing by the same set of rules. Like I said, I don't think this is not what the voters expected, I don't think. I do not think they expected to vote for a new direction, to change the direction of this community, and then have the rules changed after the fact to limit our ability to do that.
Do you think it's sour grapes because they lost?
Well, well, I'd say this. I think that, this is in a democracy. you're going to have people who win and lose elections. And I think what happens is when you lose an election, you're supposed to take a message from that, and you're supposed to try to understand what did the voters want to see happen. And in this case, voters chose a new direction. They said, enough of the politics, enough of business as usual. We need to work together, we need to be bipartisan, and we need to get something done. This proposal that was introduced late last night, without any warning or discussion, violates that.
I know in the past, some of these items have been proposed by Democrats, like moving budget date, things like that. Are there any of these items that you are on board with?
Well, I think we're reviewing them right now. Part of the problem is that they introduced them as a matter of urgency at 5 o'clock, I think an hour before the county legislature meets. Again, that's not the way government's supposed to work. You're not supposed to introduce proposals that fundamentally change the way the government works, changes the county charter an hour before the meeting starts. That's not operating in good faith. And the fact that they did it the way they did it, I think is a demonstration to the public that they knew what they were doing was wrong, and they knew what they were doing would not be acceptable to the public.
Is it also a sign that maybe they're willing to do other things that, subvert some of the normal process?
I don't know. Yeah.
Do you think it's an abuse of the message of urgency system, that's in place? I mean, I haven't dug deep enough into the charter to know when those are supposed to be used and when they're not. But in this case, do you feel like that's an abuse of that type of measure?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because this is, again, I don't think you introduce a proposal that makes this many changes an hour before a meeting if you're not trying to hide something, you're not trying to get something through. Yeah. No. I exchanged some text messages last week. I communicated with the president of the legislature, but not since now. No.
And Republicans use the word transparency
Yeah.
in their statement regarding this.
I think that's ironic that they would talk about transparency while proposing to fundamentally change the way this government operates, functions, and they do it through a matter of urgency an hour before a meeting. That's ironic.
The county executive says in a statement she respects and supports the legislation.
Okay, well, I really don't know what to make of that other than I don't know why she didn't support it and respect it while she was the county executive and could have operated under these sets of the rules too. I think this is, this isn't the way a democracy is supposed to work. I mean, my phone has been blowing up all night last night and all morning this morning from people who are just offended. People who probably, a number of people probably, I don't even think supported me in the election, but they look at this and say, like, what is going on here? This is not the way government is supposed to work. And I said this again, I said this throughout the campaign. I think people are starting to say enough. The county government matters. Our community faces far too many challenges to be bogged down in politics as usual. And I think this is just another example of how this government is constantly been focused on politics and how we're helping people who work in this government and friends of this government instead of what are we doing to help people in the community. And I think that's a shame. Right now, I'm focused on a transition, trying to transition this government so that it works for everybody and we can fulfill the promises and the commitments we made to taxpayers. And here we are, yet again, talking about the abuse of power that's happening in this government, and we're talking about issues that voters stood up last week and said, enough. This would not happen if I were the county executive.
For constituents who are concerned, what can they do?
Well, my understanding of the process is we're just at the beginning of it. So I think that if people are frustrated by this, they need to let their county legislators know. I think they need to let the county executive know that this is troubling to them, that they find this offensive, and they think it's wrong, and that this needs to be stopped.
You talked a lot in the campaign about the creation of a position like an opioid czar.
Correct. Yep.
I'm assuming that is part of this is troubling for that.
That's exactly right. We talked about creating an opioid director to help tackle the opioid epidemic. I talked about making changes around early intervention to bring more resources, child protective services. We talked about economic development, redoing our economic development program so we can grow this economy. This is in my view very troubling because this could stall those efforts. I mean, this is them trying to take away our ability to implement what I said I would do to impact those challenges, and that includes the opioid epidemic, absolutely.
What's your response to them trying to push this through so quickly and without public hearing?
Well, I think, again, like I said, I just think this is an irresponsible way to run the government. I think that it is an abuse of the matter of urgency process, and like I said, this is just not what voters voted for. This is very disappointing to me, and I think it should be stopped.
If these changes go through, how much longer do you think your transition is going to be?
We're going to keep going. This is not going to stop my building a transition team, and my expectation is people will do the right thing. There's still time. This proposal hasn't been passed yet, and I think there's time to do the right thing and recognize that the public asked for something else. They asked for something else. They asked for this government to be run in a manner that actually helps people and facilitates progress in the community, and there's still time to do that, and I'm going to keep going. This is not going to stop us. The voters elected me last week to do what they wanted us to do, and we're going to keep doing it.
Could you clarify your understanding of the legislative process of this? It's my understanding that there will be a public hearing on this, which is basically on budget day. Is this required to subject to a referendum?
That's what's not entirely. We're still looking at that to find out what that is. Yeah, but you're right. It is subject to a public hearing, which is why the public does have the opportunity to come forward now and let their legislators know how they feel about this.
Is Monroe working with your transition team?
We've communicated with her team last week, and I had a conversation with her last Friday.
You said this isn't going to stop you from putting together a transition team, but can you talk a little bit about how you read this, of what that means for you putting in department heads, department managers, cabinet, and removing people who are currently in those roles?
Well, we're reviewing still what the timeline would be for all of this, but I still have, a couple things. First of all, the law hasn't changed yet, and so I'm still optimistic that we can work together and that people will do the right thing and that they'll take away a message. I think the public outrage over this already, it's been just over 12 hours, and I think the outrage has risen to a level enough that it should get someone's attention. But I'm not going to stop. I'm building a transition team now. We'll have an announcement in just the next couple days of community leaders who will look at the challenges that face our community, the opioid epidemic, early intervention services, building our economy, child protective services, public safety, public health. Take a look at all these issues that we've been talking about in the campaign and put together a real path forward to impact the community. And I'm going to do that.
Install a team on day one.
I still intend to do that. I'm building a team. No, I don't. Not at this point. No, not at this point. But I'm not going to take any option off the table. I mean, this is. I think the voter. And like I said, this isn't about me. I'm standing up for voters right now and taxpayers who stood up last week and said, "This is enough. We're not doing this anymore. The way county government has been run, based on politics and who you are and who you know, has got to stop."